Meatloaf. Certainly not one of the world's most exciting foods, and almost definitely my least favorite dinner my mom made growing up. These days, I will eat it, but almost always slicing it thin and pretending it's a hamburger. But maybe one or more of today's recipes will change my mind because they are coming from extremely talented and proven chefs. So let's get right into this one. As always, we're gonna start with the easiest and most basic version of the day, and surprisingly enough, that is coming from Alton Brown. I grabbed some garlic croutons and hot sauce, Worcestershire, ketchup, and ignore the celery, we don't need it. Some chuck steak, salt and pepper without knocking everything over, some honey and cayenne pepper, chili powder, cumin, a red bell pepper, an onion, garlic, thyme, a carrot, and an egg. So what's with the beef I have with meatloaf? There's a couple of things. I just feel like it's one of those foods that, when done poorly, it can be quite bad. There's actually quite a few sneaky technical aspects of this that can contribute to the poor quality. If you overmix the meat, it could be really tough. Obviously, if you under-season, it's gonna be bland. If it gets overcooked, it could be dry, so it just feels like there's infinite possibilities for this to be mediocre. As far as this first Alton Brown recipe, I do love that everything basically comes together in the food processor. You do your dry breadcrumb-like mixture first, then your veggies, and then your frozen meat. When grinding your own beef in a food processor, you almost have to stick it in the freezer for about 15 to 20 minutes. Otherwise, it could very easily bind up the blades. And then we mixed everything together. Like I said, making sure that we're not over-mixing this. This is not supposed to be a sausage. It gets baked off in a 325-degree oven just until that internal temp hits 155. And every 15 to 20 minutes, I pulled it out to slather on that ketchup-y, hot saucy honey mixture. That should turn into a nice, glossy, sweet and salty glaze. And by the end of this, it was looking fine. The glaze was looking good, but it was falling apart a bit. I think I could have packed it in the bread pan a little bit firmer. But that should help with a nice tender texture, so let's give this first one a try. You know what I think my main gripe was always growing up? I could be up in my bedroom and smelling this amazing juicy steak. Is it a pasta ragu? Is it burgers? No. It's a big old hunk of meatloaf just cooking away. I know I'm still very lucky for everything my mom did, every meal she made. Just wasn't my favorite, and kids like to complain. It's good, don't get me wrong. It's probably one of the best I've had. It's just not something I would ever order at a restaurant. It's not something that's high on my list to make if I had all these ingredients. The glaze on there is good. It's very sweet. It's very nicely seasoned. I'll say I should have pulverized the meat down more. There's a few chunks. I like all the veggies in here, the seasonings. There's a lot of complexity. It's not super unhealthy. It doesn't have a lot of fat. It is good. I would eat this if it was handed to me, but my mind has not been changed yet. Next up in today's meatloaf madness, we've got yet another face from Internet Foods Mount Rushmore. It's Kenji Lopez-Alt and his classic meatloaf. I grabbed some buttermilk and chicken stock, soy sauce, ketchup and paprika, an egg, apple cider vinegar and gelatin, anchovies, cheddar cheese, butter and cremini mushrooms, ground pork, an onion, ground beef and parsley, some white bread, celery, garlic, brown sugar, salt and pepper, and another carrot. Now, even when I was a kid and I didn't have any sort of affinity for meatloaf, I at least admired its humble simplicity. It's usually pretty cost effective, and maybe the greatest part is the fact that it's usually easy. You know, you can mix some meat and those fillers with some seasonings in a bowl, plop it down on a cookie sheet, and then bake it. After a long day of stressful work, I can at least understand the appeal. But with all three of these recipes today, all that goes out the window because the stuff is pretty involved. I had to bloom gelatin with buttermilk and chicken stock, something I never thought I would say or do. You have to food process some mushrooms and the bread, set that aside. Throw all of your seasonings and vegetables down in the food processor as well. Cook down the vegetable mixture until all that water was evaporated, until it thickens up and darkens a little bit, and then add your gelatin mixture into that, and then throw all three of our components together in a bowl with the two types of ground meat, the eggs, some cheese, some chopped up parsley, and seasonings. This one is certainly not a easy after work throw together dinner. This is like a take up half of a Sunday dinner. I'm not really sure why we went through the process of cooking out the water when we left the raw chopped up mushrooms on the side, which contain the most water out of any component we have here. That seemed a little bit odd to me, but then you have to chuck the mixture into another loaf pan, let it sit in the fridge for a while until it firms up. We're making yet another glaze made up of ketchup and brown sugar and apple cider vinegar. This time cooking that down too, which I'm fine with. This does make sense to dissolve the sugar and give the glaze a head start before it gets in the oven. The thing I don't understand is cooking this for 30 minutes while the pan is still on top, then removing it, and letting it cook for another 40 to 50 minutes until the internal temp was 140, glazing every 15 minutes. Maybe this has been my problem my whole life. Maybe I haven't given Meatloaf the many hours it deserves to be good, so before I pass any more judgment, let's taste this. So this one looks like basically exactly what I imagine when I think of a meatloaf. You would get this in a restaurant, maybe over a bed of mashed potatoes. Once again, it's a very good meatloaf. It just doesn't blow me away like so many other foods have the ability to do. I do like the fact that I'm getting the end pieces with all that extra caramelized glaze on the side. And the thing that sticks out in this one is that boost of umami, which I appreciate. All those mushrooms and anchovies. It is very meaty and savory, but while better than the last one, clearly, because I've eaten so much more of it, it still doesn't feel like it's worth all that work, and I still remain a loafy skeptic. Now, if you thought that we couldn't get a wilder ingredient list for such a seemingly simple dish, think again, because next up, we've got Chef Jean-Pierre and his world-famous meatloaf. I grabbed balsamic vinegar, hot sauce, panko breadcrumbs, eggs, and olive oil. Some buttermilk, Worcestershire sauce, and bacon, ground pork, ground veal, and ketchup, a ham steak, ground beef, salami, fresh parsley, thyme, garlic, an onion, brown sugar, salt and pepper, and a carrot. Immediately, this one just jumps off the screen to me because it seems like somebody challenged him how many pork/meat products he could possibly fit in a single loaf. We've got 4 pork products alone, which I'm certainly not complaining about, I just have never seen. I thinly sliced and diced the salami and ham. I tried to get a really fine dice of the carrot. And as you'll see, besides the initial chopping up of the meats and veggies, this one is on par with Alton's as far as simplicity of procedure. You just have to cook off your onions and then literally just throw everything in a bowl, mix it up, line a bread pan with bacon, stuff the meat in there, flip it out, glaze it before it goes in the oven, and then cook it off, and that's it. It sounds a little bit more involved when I spout off all the steps like that, but trust me, at least compared to the last one, this is very simple. By the way, while I'm finishing this last one up, I just want to say, YouTube has been falling off a cliff, guys. I've been debating addressing this for weeks now, but after the last video or two, I kind of have no choice. Views are down like 70–80% across the board, which is insane. And it's not just me, which is why I'm not totally panicking, but it's just a wild time we're in. So if you're still here watching, thank you so much, I love you. Thank you for always understanding when I do brand deals in some of these videos. At least most of you understand. But this long form food format is really on its last leg, so don't be shocked if you see some crazy drastic changes in the next year. I'll try to keep you guys updated if and when any changes ever pertain to me, but for right now, we've got one more recipe to test. Starting to feel like plankton. I don't care about this food. If there's anybody actually out there that would prefer this over a saucy, tender meatball, or a burger, or any kind of pasta or taco made with ground beef, please let me know. It's just bleh. I mean, the bacon helps on this one, although not on the very bottom where it's still gelatinous. But somehow, shockingly, this one's a little dry. I don't know if I overcooked it, if I overworked it, or all of the above, even though I used a thermometer and pulled this the second it hit 140. I will say I like the addition of the other pork products. I feel the same way about meatloaf that Dave Portnoy feels about a Neapolitan pizza, if you follow him. Like, the highest it can be is like a 6.5 out of 10. If I had to rank them, I would do Kenji, Chef Jean-Pierre, and Alton Brown, so do with that information what you wish.
With the M M without the AD. Flipping burgers and my money super lazy. Try and make a meal tonight, they ain't paying me. Try and supersize my life with my A-team. Yeah, our style wasn't wavy, but we had a vision. We could make